Founder Alicia Garza summed up the philosophy behind Black Lives Matter as basically a mishmash of Black power ideology, Marxism, social Darwinism, and unbridled resentment at what they termed the heteropatriarchy of white supremacy. And while they're advocating for the Black community, their tactics have been called by some as bordering on terrorism. The gist of their grievances is that they believe law-abiding and innocent blacks are being killed by bloodthirsty police, and the idea that African Americans are routinely targeted with unremitting and indiscriminate white violence. Well, with regards to the former, statistics bear out that far more white people than blacks are killed by police in the United States, both proportionately to their population sizes and in real numbers. Thus, reality completely diverges from the narrative that the Black Lives Matter movement is attempting to paint. With regards to the epidemic of white-on-black violence plaguing African American communities throughout the U.S., there's an easy and concrete manner in which to judge this assertion. Before I continue, I'd like to stress that this is an open and frank discussion on the topic of Black Lives Matter, their assertions, and criminality. Regardless of a person's general feelings toward other groups, most honest people realize that individuals and groups are different and that all people should be judged on their individual merit. Thus, as we go forward, we'll now be speaking of statistics, not individuals. According to the 2010 National Crime and Victimization Survey, there were 62,593 blacks that were victims of white crime, while there were 320,082 whites that were victims of black violence. Using these numbers, it's clear that African Americans commit 5 times more violent crimes in absolute numbers against whites than whites do against blacks. But these figures are misleading because the population of whites and blacks are not the same in the US. There are 197 million non-Hispanic whites in the US, making up 63% of the population, while there are 38 million blacks who make up 12.6% of the population. What this means is that when adjusted for population size, blacks commit 25 times more violent assaults than whites do against blacks. And when it comes to a specific kind of assault, aggravated assault, the rate for black crime against whites is 200 times higher than it is for whites against blacks. So is there an epidemic of racial violence with whites targeting African Americans, such as the narrative that is peddled by Black Lives Matter? I don't know. What do you think?